Good morning, everyone. Welcome back to City Sewers. Today I would like to take you out to check out our morning milking routine, but it's quiet in here because as soon as I take this outside, it's going to be loud because we have baby goats in lockup and it's going to be crazy loud. So let's get going. Good morning, mamas and babies in lockup. Good morning. They're seeming quiet today. Beautiful Jane. I know that I've already got her going here, but I want to take a moment here to talk about the differences in the girls' udders. We'll get to Betsy's udder in a minute here, but you can see Jane's udder is fairly pendulous. It doesn't have a very clear line in between the two halves of her udder, so she does tend to have a little bit more swing, I guess, in her udder when she walks. Now, this isn't saying that she has a terrible udder or anything like that, and her teats are a touch short, but she's got good size orifices, so it's fairly easy to milk her. And this is just very gentle massaging in her udder because it will help with letdown. So, because if you think about it, when her babies are doing this, they're not being gentle because they're excited about eating. So they're good girl, you're okay. So most goats are able to hold back some of their milk. They won't let it all down at once. And at the stage that her babies are at now, they're old enough that they could be weaned. So I don't worry so much about keeping milk in there for the babies, because them working on her, if she's got no milk in there, it stimulates her to make more. And actually 2 of her babies are they're in the process of weaning because they're going to their new homes next week, and so we're working on weaning them, and they're actually not going to be on her until this afternoon. So she'll only have 1 of her babies on her, and her babies are about 13 weeks old, 13 and a half. So they are far and away old enough to be weaned. These are the cookies that I use after they're done milking. It's a nice little special treat for them. And actually the raspberry leaf in it really helps with milk production, especially in the beginning of lactation. Okay. It's cookie time! Betsy goes running in. Now, if we look at Betsy's udder here, she's got this very clear line down the middle, two very clear sides of her udder, and she's got these nice wide teats at the top. These actually are easier to milk than Jane's are, although this is Betsy's first lactation and Jane's second, so it was a little bit of an adjustment switching over and learning the differences in between their udders. And Betsy actually has a harder time letting down than Jane does. So I had to do like a lot more massaging and bumping and trying to get the milk out. Betsy here is the one who had a really rough start in her lactation. She didn't have enough milk to feed her 3 babies. So we were supplementing them with Jane's milk. And eventually she caught up. And now she's doing really well. And she has amazing stand manners. I've been very impressed with her for her first time being a milker. She did a little bit of dancing when we first started, just because, you know, it's a whole new experience. What are you doing? Why are you squeezing me there? But once she figured out that it provides relief for her when she's full, and that she gets a cookie at the end of it, she stands perfectly. She has never stuck her foot in the milk, and she just stands really well. Now, I understand that that is not the case when my mother has tried to milk her. So sometimes it matters who milks them, because they definitely have their favorites. So Betsy's got these nice long teats that are nice and wide at the top. It's real easy to milk. But one thing that I had to get used to with her is that the orifices on her teats point more forward than Jane's do. Jane's kind of point straight down, where Betsy's, especially on her right teat, it points more forward. So when I've sprayed my wrist a few times, you just have to get used to what each individual animal does. It's really like, last year we only had the one goat in lactation, which was fine. We love the milk. But having 2 this year, it's been a real learning experience of just how different each animal's udder can be. Let's see. Right now, Betsy is not even eating. She's just standing. She's awesome. Don't have much of an appetite this morning, huh? Another thing of note here on Betsy's udder versus Jane's is that Betsy just does have a lot more tissue. So her udder will sometimes feel thicker and fuller than it is, just because she actually has more tissue. But she's keeping up with Jane production-wise, so I'm okay with a little bit more fleshiness there as long as we're still getting the milk. I'm just not interested in food this morning, Betsy. It's not like you. So just a testament as to how far Betsy has come. She's gone from having not enough for 3 newborn kids to now she's actually producing a little bit more than Jane. But she's also 4 weeks behind Jane in her lactation, so I'm pretty sure, I know that Jane was making this much 4 weeks ago. But it's still far and away better than she started. So not too shabby, huh? Such good girls. Rosie! Alright, time to release the babies! That actually worked out. I know. Okay. Hey there, you two. You guys ready for your grain? So Willoughby and Eleanor are going to be the first babies to leave us, and they're actually going to their new home next week. So we are getting them weaned. They are getting a little bit of grain to kind of make up for the fact that they don't get to nurse on Mom in the morning. We're very sad to see them go. We're gonna miss them, but we're so excited for their new owners. They're super excited. They're getting everything ready, and it's gonna be an awesome setup for these guys. Colonel and Washington will actually be going together. So they're here for just a little bit longer while Washington ages up so that he's old enough to be weaned, because we actually decided that we would wean at 10 weeks minimum. So Washington is 9 weeks now, so we'll begin the weaning process on them next week so that they can go to their new home. Things are sure going to be a lot quieter around here when little Miss Eleanor is gone. She's the most vocal out of all of our goats. And the weaning process has not encouraged silence from her. Mr. Willoughby is more stoic about everything. As long as he gets snuggled, he's fine. Hey everybody, it's been a few days since I actually started this video where I was milking our goats, and I just wanted to fill you in on some of the events that happened shortly thereafter. I noticed that when Betsy was on the stand, she didn't want to eat very much, and I grew concerned about her, so I kept a close watch on her. Now, I guess we'll take a little further step back. The night before I was milking them, I was trimming some stuff in the garden, and some of the very aggressively growing Zimbalo melon pears. Now, I was not aware if they were edible or not, and so I was just trying to play it safe because there's very little information on obscure plants on if your goats can eat them or not. And I was trimming them, and I hucked some of the clippings over the fence to go into the green bin, and really closely watched my goats to see if they were interested, and they didn't seem interested. They came over and they sniffed it, and they weren't interested, but I did go around and pick them up and put them in the green bin, and I thought that was that, but it seems that Betsy ate at least a nibble, a tasting nibble of some of those plants, and it turns out that they are poisonous. Now, they are a member of the nightshade family, but you know, there's some wiggle room on if they're edible or not, because tomatoes and eggplants are nightshades, and the goats love tomato clippings. So, fast forward back to the day I was milking, and Betsy didn't want to eat, and I thought that was unusual because she's usually a very food-driven, food-motivated goat. So I kept a close watch on her, and she just deteriorated throughout the day. She looked awful, she was depressed, she didn't want to eat anything, and by the time she had diarrhea, I knew there was something that was really wrong. Because we all have an off day. Even Jane has had like a day or two where she just doesn't really want to eat and just feels a little blah. It's normal. But Betsy getting diarrhea was big red flags, and so I contacted my vet, and I was drenching her with some Nutri-Drench, and drench means that you are putting a liquid medication down their throat, and I noticed that she felt really warm to the touch, like warmer than usual. So I took her temperature. She did have a fever. Her temperature was 105, which isn't like astronomical for an adult goat. It's not like super dangerous, but it is a definite fever. And so I had to go out and get some antibiotics for her, and she's doing okay now. She still looks real thin because she went for a whole day without wanting to eat anything, so she didn't eat hay, and she's already been struggling a little bit with condition just because being her first time in lactation, things like that. She just puts a lot of resources into milk production and raising her kids, so we've been working on getting her weight back up, but then having a day of not eating, she looks a little thin, but she's doing a lot better. She's back to normal in the sense in that her attitude is back to normal. She doesn't have diarrhea anymore, no fever. So she is doing good. She just looks a little thin. The other complication, though, of that whole event is that we had to put her on antibiotics, which means that we had to pull the kids because we don't want them nursing off of a doe that's on antibiotics that will transfer through the milk. So we had to just hardcore wean everyone all at once. And it wasn't terrible. We've been doing a rotation now where the does will spend the day in the lockup pen where the babies usually spend the nights, because the does, they don't run around and play so much. Most of what they do is eat and lay around. So they're fine sitting in the pen, and the babies come out during the day and they can run around and play and do whatever. So there hasn't been a ton of screaming and crying just because they have something to do. But yeah, so we can go and take a look at Miss Betsy and how she's doing, and I just wanted to keep you guys updated on everything that's going on. We didn't get any filming during the process of everything because it was one thing too many for me to think about when I was concerned about my poisoned goat. Hey, Miss Betsy. Hi, Mama. Oh, goodness. Yeah, you gotta be in the camera, huh? Let's see, you can see she does look a little thin, but she looked way worse than this when she first started because now she's at least got some food in her rumen. But she's on the way. She's doing a lot better. Huh, Mama? She's still milking. We had to throw out her milk for a few days because of the antibiotics, but now the course is over. Milk is all clear. And she's doing really good. How sweet Betsy. And so you can see the comparison. Betsy is usually a larger goat than Jane. So. But we're getting there. She'll fill out. Especially now that the babies are not on her full time. It's less stress on her, so she can focus more on eating and gaining weight. So my big takeaway from this whole experience was, if you don't know for sure that it's safe for your goat to eat, don't even let them sample it. It was a close call, and it was only maybe a nibble that she ate, and she was in some serious stress. But our vet said it was pretty much a textbook case of solanum poisoning, which is nightshade. So don't mess around with nightshades, guys. The easy thing would be to not talk about this whole experience and kind of hide it from everyone, because it is embarrassing and frustrating for me, because it's like, oh yeah, I know what I'm doing. I'm still learning, guys. And so this is something that I have learned, and I'm just hoping that nobody else has to deal with a similar issue with an obscure plant that produces edible fruit for people, but don't muck about with stuff you don't know. Anyway, as always, this is your urban nerd with a goat herd, telling you can grow where you're planted.